Congressman, last year you showed me some cards you give out to every member of Congress in the House and
That's
in the
correct.
Senate, Republicans and Democrats alike. I think you showed me House Speaker Mike Johnson's card last year. And on the card, it says how many of their constituents in their district rely on Social Security. Do you still do that? And when you're giving them to Republicans now, I mean, what are they saying? What are those conversations like?
They're very appreciative of the card, and I think many of them are astounded. But when I go to the floor, every time I go to the floor to talk on what's called a 5 minute, I also, who is ever in the chair speaking, and it's always a Republican because they control the House, I recite for them exactly what's in their district and how many people. And on average, Brittany, it's about 145,000 people per congressional district on average, and also about 200 million that comes into that district monthly. I also remind them that this is why this is such a valuable program, and especially in this inflationary time, and with this vast disparity gap between the have and the have nots, that a plan that provides citizens with a monthly income needs to be there, and we need to know that they're receiving this amount of money and what it would mean if they don't get it. It is, after all, as I like to remind our Republican colleagues, the safety net for capitalism and entrepreneurialism. The genius of Roosevelt was knowing that in a system like that, which we love and respect and admire because we want people to take risks, we want people to be creative, we want people to be inventive. But if for some reason, whatever, climate change, whatever happens, inflation, a pandemic, whatever happens, through no fault of theirs, people that are laid off or out of work, they still need to put a roof over their head and feed their families, pay the rent, go to the pharmacy. And as we said earlier, for 40% of that 70 million, the only benefit they have is Social Security. And so that's why it's so important. And who speaks for them if not their elected representatives? Elon Musk doesn't speak for them. He and Donald Trump don't lose a moment's of sleep worrying about putting a roof over their heads, putting the meal on the table, or caring for those people. They're billionaires. God bless them. They're successful. God bless them. But our mission under the Constitution is we the people. And it's the people that were sent to Washington to represent and protect. And the brilliance of Roosevelt in our system is that we know that Social Security works. It's the most popular insurance program in the nation, the number one anti poverty program for the elderly, and the number one anti poverty program for children.
You mentioned earlier some comments that Elon Musk made recently on Social Security. He made them during an interview with Larry Kudlow on Fox Business. I want to read some other comments he made in that interview. He said entitlement spending is the big one to eliminate. As we know, entitlements include Social Security. They include Medicare and Medicaid. And he said the government spends anywhere from $500 to $700 billion on them. President Trump himself, Republicans themselves, all said that they're not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They're not touching that. Instead, they're going to look for the waste, the fraud, the abuse in there. But realistically, is there $500 to $700 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse in Social Security?
Well, this is such a conundrum, and I'm glad you asked the question because it's confounding. Number one, as you point out, if you look at the federal budget and you were to take three specific areas, those being national defense, those being Medicare and Medicaid, and Social Security, That's over 70% of the federal budget in three programs. So Musk has said he's not wrong about saying, where is the money being spent with regard to the federal budget? Yes, indeed, it's defense, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Now, how much has he been asked or directed to find by President Trump? $2 trillion, I believe, right? Now, is it coincidental that what was the tax cut of 2017? The Trump legacy. Hmm. Let's see. Oh yeah, that was $2 trillion. Oh, oh yeah. And by the way, of those three major programs that we just named, does any one of them have a trust fund? Yes. Social Security. Oh, and by the way, how much money do you think is in the Social Security Trust Fund that has been put there by American citizens? $2.7 trillion. So when Musk says he's going after the money and he's following the money, believe him. It's an old adage in politics, in government. If you want to find out what's going on, follow the money. And that's what the American people need to be tuned into, and why he's out, as he said clearly, time and time again, to privatize it. And in the same token, as you point out, Republicans have said, no, President Trump has said time and again, we're not going to touch Social Security. And yet, the same weekend that Elon Musk called it a Ponzi scheme, he called it a scam. And he's given him a free hand. And they say, oh, yes, but he's only going after the fraud, abuse, and waste. Well, I said, well, if that's the case, why isn't he coming before our committee? Because we'll surely roll up our sleeves and help them find that. Because nobody wants to see fraud, abuse, and waste in the military, in Medicare, or Medicaid, Social Security, or any governmental program. So you talk about a Ponzi scheme. That's the real Ponzi scheme, is that they're saying they're going to be, oh no, we're not touching Social Security. We're not going after Medicare or Medicaid. But in the same breath, they're saying, but we're going to follow the money and we're going to look there. And this is where we're going to come up with the $2 trillion the president has asked them to. They have got to be held accountable to the American people, to the United States Congress, and to the media. And it's going to be individuals. And frankly, they've got the power. They control the Senate, the House, and the presidency. They can block us. We will continue to use every single legislative tool in our box, including resolutions of inquiry, to demand that they come before us. But so should every citizen in this country. People ask what they can do, demand that he come before Congress under oath and tell the American people where he's going to find that $2 trillion.